Welcome to the Boss It Weekly podcast, a no-nonsense, no-hype, frank, and close-up analysis of what is currently working and what is not in the world of software. The Boss It podcast is packed with major takeaways for software business owners and managers. So, let's begin.
So away we go, and another Boss It podcast. So all of you software entrepreneurs out there that are listening today, I think I've got a bit of a treat for you. Well, I've also got a treat for myself because I think this podcast is it's a little bit self-indulgent because I'm going to introduce to you somebody one of his main focus is about creativity. I've been doing a bit of reading about this individual, and I've really been looking forward to this. So I'm going to introduce you to Nir Bashan. He is a world-renowned creativity expert, and that's probably not somebody that you would have spoken to many times. We're going to find out about his background, but he's an author, he's a speaker, he's a consultant, and he talks at lots of conferences and corporate events. I think this is a really important aspect for a lot of software entrepreneurs, particularly today, and it will become even more so. My feeling is that creativity is the precursor for the innovation, and innovation is going to be so important. And I'm going to check with Nia. Nia Bashan, welcome to the Boss It podcast. It's great to have you here. As I said, this is going to be a good one for me because I'm really going to enjoy this.
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
I hope I live up to that intro. Yeah.
You will, without doubt. Without doubt. So the book that you wrote and the talks that you give, the creator mindset, is that correct? Is that what you call it? Is that the business name and the sort of the focus for what you do?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. I mentioned in my intro that creativity is the precursor for innovation, because to me, innovation is putting that creativity into action, is making it reality. Would you agree with that definition?
Oh, there's no doubt. It's funny. I know that you work in the M&A field and with software companies. I gave a talk to a software convention, developers and stuff like that. And the opening line of my talk was that basically software is a really unique field, because a lot of those people in that room, a lot of you out there, are developing, and trying to solve problems with software. And many of those problems just don't exist. And I think that there is such a lack of creative thinking, especially in the software field. People come through with engineering degrees and they are so convinced that they're solving a problem. And when you look at it creatively, the problems that they're, setting up companies to solve, I'm sure you'll agree, Mark, just don't exist.
Yes. I've seen it a lot of times. It's, I think that people can get sucked into the details sometimes and not see the bigger picture. And
down the rabbit hole,
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I think that, once you have a product and you get set on a particular track, like a train on rails, I think that can be restricting in not allowing full creativity. And by going back to the customer, I agree, you've got to be close to the end user of the software. But I remember that there was a famous quote by Henry Ford, and he said, if I'd asked the public what they wanted, they'd have said faster horses. And that really, that for me I think is one of the problems. You've obviously got to be in touch with your target market, but you can't depend on them for your creativity. You've got to bring that to the market.
Right. And, it's really, I get people who say, hey, Nir, you're creative and that's great, but I'm not looking to play the trumpet, or I'm not looking to, paint a painting or whatnot. I'm looking to, make more money here, and we're looking to advance the business in some way, and find a new market and such. And for me, the creativity that I help people develop is really around you know merging a side of your mind that has been underused for ages, and helping you sort of tap into a creativity that we're all born with, so that you can make software, so that you can make a product or service that is useful to people and something that people can get excited about, even if it's business to business. Doesn't have to be consumer facing. Excitement and passion are constructs of the creative mind, not the analytical. There's no amount of data crunching, Mark, that'll get you to the point where your end product or service is going to be exciting unless you tap into creative elements that can make it great.
Now, how do you handle, because this is something that I've heard many, many times. I've got my own view on this, but I'm sure that we won't be too far apart, is when people say to you, yeah, that's fine, but I'm just not creative. I haven't got a creative bone in my body. I've heard that so many times. What do you say to those people?
Definitely. So I get that a lot.
Yeah.
Basically, my feedback on that is that we are all born creative, and we whittle away as we get older our creativity. We stifle it. We trade it for analytics. We feel like it's not the stuff of the serious and not the stuff of, the studious or whatnot. I know, Mark, that you teach, photography in different types of classes, and you'll get students coming up to you saying, I would love to, try this new method or this lens or whatnot, but I'm not creative. Yeah. And for me, the answer always is that you were all born creative. And even we talk about it in the book. There's some pretty serious research about it, that we're all born creative, and we kind of lose it as we get older. So it's about recapturing what we already have.
Do you think that it's also about expectation? Because, whatever goal that you may have or whatever direction you set out in, you have to go in that direction with the expectation that you're going to arrive. And if you've got somebody continually telling themselves, I'm not creative, well, there's a serious handicap.
Yes. So that's why the book's called The Creator Mindset.
Yeah.
It's really about shifting your mindset away from what you're used to and away from what you're comfortable doing and into creativity. Listen, I get it. You've been in the software field for a long, long time, right? And you have a engineering background, which is, noble and fantastic. But what I'm advocating for is not throwing away what has got you here. What I'm advocating is enhancing what you already have, the code, the DNA of your operating system, to enhance it with creativity that is part and parcel to who you are. You just have to tap in there and enhance your mindset to accept different types of thinking, different modalities, which will, at the end of the day, make you way, way more successful than thinking with the analytics alone.
I've got a question for you. I've got two parts to this question, actually. Is how much do you think that confidence in that you can be creative is important? And secondly, if it is, how do you help people to become more confident in their own innate creativity?
So the confidence is everything. And what I feel, look, I was in a bunch of creative fields, and some not. I ran a Hollywood production company where we made movies and commercials, and then I ran a furniture refinishing company. So completely not creative. That was just about stripping furniture and getting the right code on and then sending it out to the customers. I mean, that's not, the most creative venture ever. But sure. In all of those things, I found that, being creative and believing in the fact that you're creative opened up, so many new opportunities, so many new markets, so many new chances to capture revenue and turn it into profit. So for me, I think both are essential. And my career was spent, kind of looking for creativity everywhere that I could. And I figured, listen, there's got to be a book that I can buy and go through and get creative. And what I found in the market was that there is a ton of books on creativity. Yes, there are a ton of books on creativity, but almost all of them are about the why of creativity. Why should you be creative? Why? That kind of thing. And
not the how.
No hows,
Yeah.
Mark, not one how book.
I
And
agree.
so, I kind of kicked around an idea with my editor at McGraw-Hill Business, and they were very excited about getting a book out there that has the how. And so, to answer your question, it's really about, believing, having that creator mindset and believing that you can create things, and then equipping yourself with some tools on the how. And that's kind of what I set out to do. So I wrote a book with 92 tools in it. And, you flip around, you can read the book. It's got very little why. Maybe the first chapter or two is kind of on the why and some theory and some background. And then we dive into a bunch of tools that you can use, anyone can use in any business in any field to enhance the creativity that you're all born with to do way, way, way better in your business.
Well, it'll be interesting to perhaps dip into a few of those ways. But before we do, I mean, my own thoughts that I sometimes come across senior executives that perhaps are part of a very successful company. And sometimes I think that there is maybe, I don't know what we want to call it, maybe a little bit of arrogance from them, which is saying that what they did yesterday will be sufficient for what will bring them success tomorrow. And they don't need to be creative. They don't need to innovate. That, for me, is a potential warning sign that they could be on that beginning of that sort of death spiral. Have you come across that?
Oh, many times. And it's actually a tool that I write in the book, one of the 92 tools that I ask you not to do. And it's called Rust Upon Success. Yeah, it's a tool you don't do. Okay. It's called the Rust tool, Rust Upon Success tool. And basically, listen, I find that everywhere from Fortune 100 all the way to the corner dry cleaners here that has, a mini franchise of 3 or 4 locations in Orlando, Florida, and he's feeling pretty good. It's one of the worst economies in a long time, and his business is thriving, and people are attending to their dry cleaners using his services. But what I find is that the company that doesn't innovate, that doesn't create, that doesn't continually mine the creativity part of the business is one that's doomed for failure. Listen, Mark, and I talk about it in the book, we only have a certain band of time in which we are relevant. Some people expand that band of time for as long as humanly possible, and we've seen that with companies like Coca-Cola and even Ford, like you're talking about, continually releasing new products and changing. Ford just renovated the interior of their cars. A buddy of mine is the head of the program there, to where all of the displays are digital. So there's no more analog displays. Why? Because the digital displays enable you to not only customize the experience of driving the particular car, but they enable the user to sort of, feel a sense of connectivity with the car, feel a sense of connectivity with their mobile, so on and so forth. And these advancements in innovation are what will drive literally forward into the new era. And these are the kinds of companies that innovate. But when you stagnate, you sort of feel good about what happened yesterday. And rightfully so. We're hardwired for that, Mark. Yes. The ancient caveman and woman days, when we were able to go to this field at this particular time and get water, we felt pretty good about it. We figured, tomorrow we'll be able to get water too. And that's literally saved our lives. But we're so far removed from those days that today we still have that sort of DNA built within us, and we must break those chains of relying on who we are as biological sort of people and sort of merge toward creativity in everything we do to keep our businesses healthy.
Yeah. And I remember, and I can't quote it exactly, but I think that there was, well, one of the companies that I think has been brilliant with innovation, has become one of the world's biggest organizations, is obviously Apple, with
Yep.
Steve Jobs at the helm, and he was a great believer in creativity. And I remember once he was talking about creativity and innovation and saying it's not about the amount of money you spend, because when they came up with the Apple Mac, IBM was spending hundreds of times more than they were. But
No doubt.
it was the people that he had, and it was the creativity that they came up with that made the difference. So not just about money.
No doubt. Yeah, it's really about enabling, leadership, enabling, senior directors enabling their staff, so on and so forth, all the way down the line. There are tons of stories of organizations even in manufacturing and sort of, old school fields where leadership has motivated and inspired people all the way down the line, and all of a sudden a new manufacturing technique comes from the person operating the actual line. And for me, Mark, that is the height of creativity. You can't get much better than that, because if you are able to instill in your entire organization a sense of creativity, in a sense that you want ideas to come up and you want feedback and you want a safe environment where ideas can be nurtured, you are going to be around tomorrow. If you're the type of company that says, my way or the highway, you'll be done soon enough.
Yeah, yes. It's interesting because a couple of podcast guests that I've had recently, we were talking to two different people about employees within an organization, one from the perspective of services and software that they offered to companies to help manage their employees, but to gain feedback from them, to gain ideas from them.
Yep.
And another lady, which has not been published yet, a lady called Jackie Hand, that is a consultant and talking about diversity, not just ethnicity, but it's diversity of thinking, so that you can bring people together that can create and innovate together. That's how important that is. So gaining that feedback that you speak about is, I suppose, it's a never-ending process within a healthy business.
Never ending. And it's something that you need to instill in your process daily. Listen, Mark, I consult with businesses, and the thought process goes like this. And it's okay because it's good. It pays my bills. But to be honest with you, I get a call. Somebody says, hey, we got, this amount of time. We want to engage with you. Come aboard and help us out. And they feel like they've checked the box and they've moved on. But for me, I come aboard and I actually try to instill creativity in the process, the protocol. I have a 4 Ps that I call, people, process, product, and profit. And, I work with the organization to try to maximize creativity at all 4 cornerstones. But what ends up happening a lot of times is that people say, you know what, Nir, thanks, we're really good. You've kind of came in, taught us how to be creative, and then they move on. And then they call me in 6 months to a year going, yeah, can you come back in for a refresher? And I at that point, I know that, the work that we've done has been like a box check and not something that is a continual process. And what I really want to do is help people become creative themselves, really remembering who we are as children and remembering the hallmarks of what makes us who we are, and enabling people to express that creativity in a day-to-day basis. That's what I really, really look forward to doing.
Do you have some stories about people being innovative within business and the sort of changes that's brought about? What have you seen or heard, or maybe you're involved with yourself?
Yeah, definitely. I did one of the latest things is right before the whole COVID thing hit. I did a consulting or a speaking engagement with a disaster restoration convention, and when there's a fire or whatnot or a flood, and they come in and kind of clean up and help you out.
Yeah.
And a guy came up to me and he was like, how does this creativity really help me here? The whole time, you're talking, and I think it's great, but you talk for an hour, and I'm thinking the whole time about all these emails I have to send, proposals. I'm like,
Yeah.
really? He's like, yeah, totally. I mean, like, I get it, and I get how people can be attracted to this message, but I want that hour back so I could send emails. I'm like, great. Let's talk about your emails. Who are you going to send to? He's like, I'm going to send to proposals out to clients. I'm like, great. What's the close rate? He's like, oh, it's like 22. I can't remember the number, Mark, but it was 22%. I said, okay, that sounds kind of low to me. He's like, oh, Nir, that's industry standard. I'm like, do you want to be industry standard?
Yes, that's
or
right.
do you want to do cool things?
Yeah.
And he's like, no, listen there, I've got 100 trucks and 2,500 employees. And, he gave me the whole yesterday talk, like you were saying earlier, Mark, about how yesterday everything was great. And then tomorrow it'll be the same. And I told him, and we started just right there, started to, in the convention hall, just started to talk about, his proposals and how they're structured. And it turns out that we got into his pricing model right then and there, 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And his pricing model was, kind of a lump sum. And I said, why don't you move to an a la carte and let your client choose amongst many billing models, a la carte would be a cheaper solution if they pick one or two of the services. If they pick everything, you make more money, and so on and so forth. So he was like, okay, listen, let's engage. So he hired me. I came aboard, consulted. And then, months later, Mark, we have an a la carte billing model, which most of his clients elected to get all the services because he was able to zoom into some of his customer service skills and, really help people understand what they're doing. And all of a sudden, they booked more work. We got into looking at proposals and not as legal spreadsheets, but we started telling stories with the proposal. Mary Smith had a really bad day. She left the stove on while taking the kids to work or whatnot. The coffee maker ended up burning, so on and so forth.
Yes.
And, we put kind of a la carte services of 3 or 4 that were digestible with a number and sent them out. And we got, something like a 7 or 8% uptick on closes with, it's not rocket science. And all of those ideas, Mark, didn't come from me. They came from him. And he knew what he wanted to do, but it was always too afraid to try. Why? His ego. Why it worked yesterday. Why his reputation, so on and so forth.
Yes.
And we have all of these blocks that we put on us, Mark, to keep us from being creative. Once we learn how to sort of cut those chains and allow ourselves to be free, what ends up happening is we really find a way to make more money.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes it is also about putting in yourself in the right frame of mind, the right environment. For me, I sometimes have to write, and I find I have to get out of the office. I'll go and take my iPad or my laptop, and I'll go and sit somewhere completely different because that helps to stimulate. If it's something that I believe where I need to be creative, or if I'm if I'm in my personal life with photography, I find that sometimes I have to work quite hard to be creative.
Yeah.
And that's the bit that I've found when people are saying, I'm just not creative, sometimes they have this misconception that creativity is just something that springs into your head. And actually, they're not setting themselves up to be creative. They're not giving themselves a chance. They're not taking the time. They're doing many other things. It needs a bit of focused attention, like anything. If you want success in any field, you need to focus on it. And I think it's the same with creativity.
Yes, creativity is more. Listen, I want to bust this myth once and for all. Creativity is more about perspiration than it is inspiration. It's about getting there and doing it. And anybody can do it. It just takes the will to try. And once you start to do these practices, you do it by changing a location and kind of changing it up and getting your laptop and getting out of the office and so on and so forth. Yet there's, another 100 1,000 ways to do it. I got 92 of them in the book, but there's all kinds of ways. And what I'm hoping is that when people sort of follow my method, they get excited about creating their own way to generate creativity. Listen, if you're waiting for lightning to strike and the light bulb to go on over your head, it's not happening. You will not be creative. But if you are willing to work at it, the amount of innovation that you can introduce to your company now, right now, by practicing some of the tenets of the creator mindset will be earth-shattering. I mean, it literally changed the game. Just like I did with the disaster restoration company, we did a few different tools that just changed the paradigm. And Mark, the best part of this, I also do a lot of consulting with manufacturing for some reason, but
Yes.
the best part of it, in my opinion, is that all of it is free. Every single method that I talk about is free. It's not about buying that huge piece of machinery. I get that a lot. People are like, "Oh, Nir's coming, great. We're gonna have to buy a new piece of gear," or we're gonna have to hire new people, or we're gonna have to set up an innovation department. I love that. The innovation department. Innovation should be part of every department, not just not just. I mean.
I love this idea of an innovation department. Is you get a group of people in an office and you put them behind a desk and you shout out, "Be creative! Go on, innovate! Do it now!" Does it work like that? I mean, you're the expert. I'm just I'm the amateur here.
No, it doesn't. You cannot. You don't want to. Research and development, yeah, but you really want to integrate all these things. Every success story from the great things that we love, from the iPhone all the way to the automobile. Every piece of machinery or gear, software, anything that really has been created has a piece of the end user in mind, a piece of the engineer in mind, a piece of the process in mind, a piece of the UX and the UI in mind, so on and so forth. And these are all sort of holistic departments working together creatively to, create a product or service that people will enjoy.
And tap into all of that knowledge and expertise and experience. I think it can be quite surprising where the creative idea can come from.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it literally can come from anywhere and at any time. And having a discipline to channel that into something that is worthwhile for you is really only something you can define. This isn't something you can offload on someone else and just say, "Hey, I've checked the box. I bought in there. We're good." That's part of the process, or reading the book is part of the process, or even listening to your podcast, Mark. That's part of the process. That'll enable you to unlock some of those creative thoughts. But this is a discipline that has to be practiced every day for really effective results.
I remember actually, and you've reminded me, many years ago, with a co-founder of a business, we sat down to do some business planning, which is a necessary step, we knew, but we saw it also as a bit of a necessary evil.
Yep.
And we were planning a trip to go to the States. We went to Los Angeles, and we ended up doing the business planning session in an outside jacuzzi, and we sat there with a book for 6 hours in the jacuzzi outside with drinks, enjoying ourselves as we were doing it, but had one of the best business planning sessions that we've ever had. The ideas were really creative, and it wasn't because we were drunk and it was crazy. It was solid, but we just put ourselves into a different environment that and I think also sort of kidding ourselves, saying, this isn't hard, this isn't unpleasant, we're having fun, and we did.
Yeah, changing it up. Oh my goodness. What a wonderful way. That's something you can execute today, instead of having, we used to have meetings in boardrooms all the time. Now we're kind of remote. Instead of having a meeting in a normal place, change it up, change up the location, change up the style of the meeting. It's really about you looking at what you'd like to change and then going for it and really committing to that change.
Yeah, and I think also it is about change. It isn't about necessarily just inventing something totally new that's never existed. I think I've seen that as well when people talk about creativity. They sometimes have this perception as to what being creative really is, and they sometimes can limit themselves by thinking it's something, totally new, that new breakthrough discovery. Business innovation and creativity can also mean improving something old or existing. That could have a
No
massive
doubt.
effect.
No doubt. The subtleties can be amazing. And I talk about it in the book, right? I have a process that teaches anybody how to be creative. It's like, I think on page 40 or something like that. It's right in the front of the book. And it's the concept, the idea, and the execution. And most of the world stays in the execution level, which is the electron microscope view of your business. So many of us spend so much time in, we see the atoms going by, but we have no idea what the product makes, because that's where the fires are. That's where the buyer's calling saying, hey, when can we have this? That's when the invoicing is not getting paid because we're on a net 60 instead of a net 30. And then we have cash flow problems, right? So those are all little atoms sort of interacting. But the level above that, Mark, is the idea level. And in that level, it's kind of like the street view, or what you would see out of binoculars, right? We see what's going on, and we have more input in that. And then the top view is the sort of satellite up in space view. You could see everything. You can't see the trends or anything like that, but you have the widest view of your business. And what I encourage people to do is to sometimes look at those different stages in order to create ideas. Sometimes staying in the execution level and just changing things a little bit can introduce wonderfully new products. It's really that pizzeria that's been putting out, Mama's famous meatball pizza for, since 1978 on the corner of 85th and Broadway in New York City, right?
Yes.
And they're not selling their pizza anymore. Why? Because people got kind of tired of that recipe. It's too fattening. It's too heavy or whatnot.
Yes.
And so that the execution view is just changing a few ingredients and putting the pizza out. It's not a revolutionary thing. I'm not telling them, hey, don't sell pizza anymore. Sell, security. It's not that leap. It's really just tweaking. And then on the idea level, now you can start really sort of diversifying what you have while keeping the creative identity of who you are and what your business does. And then on the concept level is where you see those big shifts. And you're right, Mark. People think creativity is really about that concept level, right? Yeah. Huge shifts. Oh, I'm in software as a service, and now I'm going to be in, making hardware. It's not about that. It's really about looking at the three stages and using the one that makes the most sense to you to continually come up with different and new and fresh ideas.
I suppose it's about breaking the bonds of habitual behavior, where you're just going through the motion. It's an engaging other parts of your brain to think of other ways of doing it, better ways of doing it, I guess.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
The reward sensor that we get, from tens of thousands of years ago when we were primitive, creatures on Earth, dead by 26 or whatever it was. Yes. Is still activated today, right? So what we do is we have a business, and let's face it, Mark, if you have a business at some point, it's done well. I don't know. It could have been a long time ago, could have been yesterday, but at some point it's done well. Someone is paying you some money for a product and a service, and that feels pretty dang good, right? You go, I'm doing something right. And 99% of us then stop at that point and do everything we can to just love that little moment of success. We pet it, we kiss it, we protect it, we put it in a safe somewhere and kind of lock it up. This is my IP. But what I'm trying to tell people, in my perspective, is that if you do that, it's only a matter of time before you become irrelevant. And looking at that idea and saying, okay, it's got me here and it's bringing in money and it's making me feel good. Now especially is the time to say, okay, what's next? And having that, sense of going, yeah, what's next? How do I get to the next level? What else is out there? What are my competitors doing? All of that is a creative construct, and it's something we need to do every day. You can't just, kind of fall in love with your little assembly. I've seen it time and time again, and I've also seen time and time again people get incredibly empowered by looking at things in a different way and discovering a new market, discovering a new application for that software in a different field is also incredibly empowering. So I believe that creativity needs to be continually practiced in everything that we do.
I mean, I think looking at your profile, which is very interesting. I mean, it's very colourful and diverse. You've worked in the music industry on a number of different albums. You've worked in movies. You've worked on advertisements. You've worked with actors, musicians. I noticed Rod Stewart was one of them, who doesn't live too far away. He lives just a walk away from me. I mean, that's pretty colourful and interesting background. You were nominated for an Emmy, is that correct as well?
Yeah, so I had a Hollywood production company for a while, and I was nominated for an Emmy, and I won a Clio for my work with Honda. And in all of these endeavors, I promise you, Mark, I could have taught you or any of your listeners how to do exactly the same. There's no secret sauce. There's no, pie in the sky sort of magical thing that I was endowed with and, somehow was able to win these awards. Everybody has it. It just takes the will and the discipline to do it.
Tell us a bit about yourself. I mean, I think this deserves a follow-up at some stage, because I think this is a topic that will be of interest to a wide range of people. But tell us a bit about yourself. Where are you based?
I'm in Orlando, Florida. I've been here for a few years via Los Angeles. I was in Los Angeles for 35 years. And I'm around. I'm on the internet. There's not many Nir Bashans in the world, Mark. So it's Nirbashan. If any of this sounds good to you, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love your feedback. I got a lot of sort of raised eyebrows and some, muffled, sighs and stuff when I announced that, most software is designed to create, to solve problems that don't exist at the trade show. But then, people sort of heard me out and were like, yeah, there's definitely applications of creativity that we can use to really help us become, useful. And so I would love to hear from your audience.
I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. I've been in the software industry probably approaching 30 years now, and I often say that a lot of the companies that I speak to, a lot of the people that that come to us, they've got technology and they're hunting for a problem to solve.
It's a little backwards, don't you think?
It is a little bit, yeah. So because they are technologists and they love creating the solutions, but they haven't started from the problem, and a lot of the time they struggle because there isn't really a problem there, or the problem isn't big enough, and that's the issue. It's not big enough that will get people to really engage. Yeah, it will. You could make things better, but I've got many other bigger problems than that. And that's where a lot of these software companies really struggle. And there are some massive successes in the software sector without doubt, and they can become massive successes within a very short time frame. But they're the ones that get the publicity. I also see the hundreds that don't, the thousands that don't succeed. And innovation and creativity is a big part of that. As I said before, we had a quick chat before we started recording today. I think that the two big issues facing software companies today is about communication and creativity and innovation. They're the two areas. And for a company that can really crack that, then I think that they could be in a whole different league than perhaps the rest of their competitors.
Oh, it's amazing. The potential of what you already started. It's not about throwing it away, Mark. It's about recognizing that what you've started puts you there for a very specific reason, right? I'm a firm believer in nobody kind of falling into, quote unquote, a career or a company that you own and run. I feel like we're all kind of there for a very specific reason. And I feel that we have to look deep within ourselves and within our businesses to sort of unleash that creativity that we have to lead to, problem solving, to lead to a new market for that particular product or service, to lead to, an application for, something that you've spent a long time doing. It's really not about throwing it away. It's about harnessing the power of creativity for real applications. And what you might come up with might be totally different than what you thought you were doing. And you know what? That's okay, because that's part of the process.
Brilliant. It's been fascinating talking to you today. I want to do this again. And once we stop recording, I want to have a quick chat with you, if I may. But thank you very much for coming on to Boss It. I'm sure this is going to prove to be a very popular podcast. And just been brilliant speaking to you and hearing your passion as well. That comes through very, very clearly. And I think that's a big part of it.
I appreciate it. Yeah, thanks for having me on. I love this stuff. And, my view is just helping people do well in the software field is kind of a selfish thing. I want to help them do well so that, my life becomes better. I mean, to be honest with you, we both can use better software, better applications of software at every single point in our lives. And, your listeners are doing amazing things that can benefit a whole host of people. Let's get it to be more creative. Let's get it to have a sort of better user experience and so on and so forth, so that it can see the light of day.
That's a great message to send out there. So this was Nir Bashan. You can find, there's a couple of websites that he's got, nirbashan.com, thecreatormindset.com, or just contact us and we'll put you in contact with him. It's been a brilliant podcast. Thank you very much for that. So this has been all about creativity and innovation. And if you would like us to be more creative, more innovative with our podcast, and you've got subjects and ideas, then let us know. Please throw something at it. Make it difficult for us. Really throw something at us and we'll see if we can respond. But until we speak again, keep safe and keep focused. Thanks a lot.